My sister's son threw my graduation cake on the floor and said, "Eat it off the ground." Please stay with me as I tell you my story. And please don't forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing this story with your loved ones. I never thought humiliation could taste like frosting and dust, but that night it did. The whole kitchen smelled like vanilla and smoke from the cheap candles my mom lit too close to the plastic tablecloth. Everyone had been clapping a minute before. I'd just finished thanking my mom for supporting me through nursing school, my voice shaky but proud. And then smack. The sound of the cake hitting the tile was louder than it should have been. For a second, no one moved. My mom froze, a paper plate in her hand. Aunt Joe's smile fell. And Asher, 10 years old and already mean like his mother, looked right at me with that tiny smirk. "Eat it off the ground," he said. The frosting dripped down the counter like blood. I didn't move. I didn't cry. My mom bent down first, trying to scoop the cake back into the pan, whispering, "It's fine, Harper, it's fine." Lena, my sister, laughed. "Oh, come on, it's just cake. He's a kid." She said it like it was a joke, but her eyes met mine, sharp and satisfied. Everyone looked at her before looking away, pretending they hadn't seen what they just saw. I remember my hands shaking. I remember Caleb, my boyfriend, whispering, "Just let it go, babe." But I couldn't. Not because of the cake. Because of her. Because I saw the little twitch in her mouth, the one she got whenever she thought she'd won. Lena had always been like that. When we were kids, she'd take my drawings and sign her name. When I made the honor roll, she told everyone I cheated. Mom always said she was just jealous, like that excused it. But jealousy doesn't make you turn your kid into a weapon. I looked at Asher, at his smug little face waiting for me to explode so his mom could tell everyone I was too sensitive. I didn't give her that satisfaction. I just walked out, left the laughter, the awkward murmurs, the sticky floor behind me. Outside, the air was cold enough to hurt. I leaned against my car and stared at the reflection in the window, frosting still on my shoes. It hit me then, she did this on purpose. It wasn't an accident or a spoiled kid. It was Lena teaching me a lesson, that no matter what I achieved, she could still pull me down. I promised myself right there, I'd remember that moment. The sound of the cake hitting tile. My mother's soft, panicked voice. The look on Lena's face. I didn't know how yet, but I'd make her feel what I felt, without shouting, without breaking anything. Quietly, coldly, the way she liked it. The next morning, I woke up early, still tasting embarrassment in the back of my throat. My mom was already in the kitchen, pretending to act normal, humming softly while wiping down the counters. The smell of coffee filled the air, but everything felt heavy. I couldn't stop seeing that cake on the floor, the way everyone looked away instead of at me. Lena came over around noon, pretending like nothing happened. She had that fake sweet smile she always used when she wanted to control the room. Asher trailed behind her, playing on his tablet, not even glancing my way. My mom offered them coffee, acting polite, because that's how she handled tension, by pretending it didn't exist. I waited until we were alone in the living room. "Lena," I said quietly, "I think you owe me an apology. And Asher does too." She looked up, eyebrows raised, like she was shocked I'd even bring it up. "For what?" "He's 10. Kids do dumb stuff." "It wasn't just dumb stuff," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "He threw my cake on the floor in front of everyone. That's not normal." Lena sighed like she was tired of hearing me speak. "You're so dramatic, Harper. You always make everything a big deal. Maybe if you didn't act like the world revolved around you, he wouldn't push your buttons." That stung. It always did. She knew exactly what to say to make me doubt myself. "You told him to do it, didn't you?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She laughed softly, shaking her head. "Wow, now you're accusing me of coaching my son to ruin your little party? You really need to relax. Maybe people would enjoy being around you more if you didn't take everything so personally." When my mom came back into the room, Lena switched into her sweet voice again, asking about my new job and saying how proud she was. I wanted to scream. It was like arguing with smoke. Every time I tried to grab the truth, it disappeared. Caleb came by later and tried to calm me down. "Babe, it's not worth it," he said, rubbing my shoulder. "It's family. Let it go. You're giving her what she wants by staying mad. But how do you let go when someone keeps twisting the knife?" Over the next few days, Lena sent me little texts that sounded polite but were filled with small digs. "Mom said you look tired lately," one said. Or, "Asher feels bad, but he said you scared him with how angry you looked." She wanted me to question myself, to wonder if I was overreacting. For a moment, I almost believed her. Then I remembered her face that night. How calm she was while I stood frozen in front of everyone. That wasn't surprise. That was satisfaction. Every time she smiled at me now, I saw the truth underneath. It wasn't about a cake or a party. It was about power. She wanted me small, quiet, and apologetic, the same way I'd always been. But this time, something in me had changed. I didn't fight her. I didn't yell. I just started paying attention. Every word, every look, every tiny insult that came wrapped in kindness, I stored it all. Because deep down, I knew one day, I'd use every bit of it. After that week, I couldn't stop thinking about all the little things I used to ignore. It was like my brain had finally turned a light on, and every memory I'd buried started crawling back out. For years, I thought Lena was just difficult, the kind of sister who teased too much or had a sharp tongue. But the more I replayed moments, the more I realized it wasn't teasing. It was cruelty wearing a friendly face. I remembered being 13, saving up babysitting money to buy a dress for a school dance. The night before, the dress disappeared. I found it in Lena's closet, still with the tag on it, after she wore it to her friend's party. She laughed when I got mad. "You should thank me," she said. "At least someone made it look good." Then there was my high school graduation. I had written a speech that the principal said was one of the best of the year. A week later, Lena gave a talk at church using nearly every line I wrote, like it was her own. Everyone praised her for being so thoughtful. I stood in the back, clapping along, feeling that same hollow feeling I felt the night of my party. The kind that eats at your chest but never shows on your face. The more I thought about it, the more patterns appeared. Whenever I did something right, Lena found a way to make it smaller, uglier, or hers. When I got accepted into nursing school, she told people I only got in because of a scholarship for kids from poor families. When I got my first car, she told Mom I was showing off. And Mom, always trying to keep peace, would just sigh and say, "That's just how your sister is." I started visiting Aunt Jo more often. She'd always been the only one who didn't play along with Lena's charm. One afternoon, I told her I couldn't understand why my sister hated me so much when I'd never done anything to her. Aunt Jo looked at me like she'd been waiting for that question for years. "Your sister's been jealous of you since you could walk," she said softly. "You're everything she wishes she was, kind, responsible, loved for who you are. That kind of jealousy doesn't fade, Harper. It just hides better." That stuck with me. I went home that night and opened a notebook. At first, I just wrote a few memories, the dress, the speech, the party. But then more kept coming. Times she lied about me. Times she turned Mom against me. Times she smiled in my face while twisting the story behind my back. It became a list, page after page. Not angry scribbles, just facts. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. It wasn't about revenge yet. It was about seeing the truth clearly for the first time. When you live in someone's shadow long enough, you start thinking darkness is normal. Writing it down was like pulling air into my lungs after years of holding it in. That night, I placed the notebook in my drawer and sat there for a long time. I wasn't sure what came next. But for the first time, I wasn't scared of Lena anymore. I finally saw her for what she was. And that was the beginning of everything. A few weeks later, I went to my cousin Rachel's baby shower. I almost didn't go, but Mom begged me, saying it would look bad if I skipped it. I didn't want to see Lena, but I told myself I could handle a few hours of polite smiles and small talk. The event was at a rented hall, crowded with relatives I hadn't seen in months. The tables were covered with pink decorations, and everything smelled like perfume and frosting. Lena showed up late, as usual, making sure everyone noticed when she walked in. She wore a bright dress, hugged Mom too tight, and gave me that sweet, fake smile that never reached her eyes. I kept my distance, chatting with Aunt Jo near the punch table, trying to stay invisible. At some point, I went to the hallway to get some air. That's when I heard Lena's voice behind the door of the coat room, low, smug, and laughing. I froze. She was talking to Rachel's husband, of all people. "Honestly," she said, laughing softly, "I told Asher to give her a taste of humility. She needed it. You should have seen her face." He chuckled awkwardly, and she added, "It's good for her. Maybe now she won't act like she's better than everyone else just because she's got some fancy degree." My stomach dropped. It felt like something inside me cracked open. I'd suspected it, but hearing her say it, proud of it, was different. My hands were shaking. I wanted to burst through that door and scream at her. But I didn't. I stood still until she walked away, her heels clicking against the floor, laughing like she'd won some invisible game. When I finally went back to the main room, everything looked the same: balloons, chatter, soft music, but I couldn't unhear her words. Every fake compliment she'd given me that day now sounded like mockery. Mom smiled at her, passing cake, completely unaware that her eldest daughter had planned the whole thing. On the drive home, I didn't say a word. Caleb called, asking how it went. I said fine, because I didn't know what else to say. My voice felt flat, hollow. I wasn't sad anymore. I was empty. Then slowly, that emptiness started to turn into something else. Not anger, not grief. Just clarity. There was no misunderstanding now. It hadn't been a child's bad behavior or a misunderstanding between sisters. It had been planned. She'd wanted to humiliate me. She'd used her son to do it. I realized there was no point confronting her directly. Lena always twisted things until she looked like the victim. If I shouted, she'd cry. If I cried, she'd laugh. She'd win either way. The only way to beat her was to make her reveal who she really was, without me saying a word. That night, I sat in bed staring at the ceiling, her words echoing over and over. She needed a taste of humility. No, I thought, what she needs is a taste of her own medicine. And this time, she won't even see it coming. After that day, I stopped trying to fix things. I didn't argue, didn't explain, didn't chase after apologies that would never come. Instead, I pulled back. Quietly. No big scenes, no warnings. I just stopped being available. When Mom asked if I could help Lena with errands, I said I was busy. When Lena texted asking to borrow money, just until next week, I told her I couldn't. I didn't know her excuses anymore. For the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of being called selfish. I just didn't care what she thought. I started a new job at a clinic across town. It felt like a fresh start, a place where no one knew my family or my history. The long drives to work became my thinking time. I kept replaying that moment in the hallway when I overheard her bragging. It had changed something in me. The anger wasn't gone, but it had settled into focus. One weekend, I went home to help Mom organize some old boxes from the attic. She wanted to get rid of clutter, but I think she also missed having me around. We went through dusty papers, photo albums, and old receipts. Then, tucked in one of the envelopes, I found something strange. A copy of a savings bond my grandparents had left me years ago. The name and amount were right, but the signature on the back wasn't mine. It was Mom's. Or at least, it looked like hers. I froze. Mom, I asked carefully, did you ever cash this for me? She looked confused. No, honey, that was supposed to be for your college. I thought it was still in the bank. It wasn't. The bond had been cashed almost 8 years ago. My chest went tight. There was only one person who could have had access back then, Lena. When I showed Mom the date, she went quiet. Oh, she said after a long pause. Lena said she handled some of your paperwork that year. Maybe she stopped herself. She didn't want to believe it. But I knew. That night, after Mom went to bed, I searched through old drawers and files, piecing things together. I found old emails, text messages, anything that could fill in the blanks. The more I looked, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about one cruel moment or a ruined cake. She'd been taking from me for years, in ways I never noticed. It made sense now. The jealousy, the games, the constant need to keep me beneath her. It was never about family. It was about control. She didn't want a sister. She wanted competition she could always beat. I started keeping everything I found, copies, screenshots, records. Not to show anyone yet, but to protect myself. If Lena ever tried to twist the story again, I'd have proof of what she really was. I didn't tell Mom. I didn't tell Caleb. I just kept it quiet, calm. I smiled at family dinners, spoke softly, and acted the same as always. But inside, I was building something, not revenge for revenge's sake, but truth. And when the time came, I'd let that truth speak louder than she ever could. When I finally decided what to do, it wasn't out of anger. It was out of clarity. I knew shouting wouldn't change anything, and neither would waiting for karma. Lena never faced consequences because everyone around her was too scared to upset her. So I decided to make her reveal herself in front of the very people who defended her. I called it a family dinner. I told everyone it was to celebrate my new job at the clinic and to thank them for their support. Mom was thrilled. Aunt Jo sounded cautious, but agreed to come. When I called Lena, I made my voice soft and polite. I think we should start fresh, I said. No more tension. I'd really like you there. She paused for a second, then said with a cheerful tone, That sounds wonderful, Harper. It's about time. I could practically hear the smirk through the phone. She loved any event where she could be seen as the better sister. I spent the next week preparing, not just for dinner, but for the truth. I printed out copies of the bond statement, screenshots, and notes I'd written over the years. I kept them sealed in a folder tucked inside a drawer by the dining table. Aunt Jo knew a little about my plan, but not the full picture. She just nodded when I told her. I want everyone to see who she really is, without me saying a word. When the evening came, I cooked everything myself, roasted chicken, vegetables, and the same kind of cake Mom had made for my graduation. The smell filled the apartment, warm and sweet, but my stomach was tight the whole time. I wasn't nervous. Just alert. Focused. Lena arrived late, wearing expensive perfume and a smile that didn't match her eyes. Asher came in behind her, holding his phone, not saying hello. Mom hugged them both like nothing bad had ever happened. I stayed calm and greeted them with a smile that felt practiced. Dinner started smooth. Everyone talked about work, school, and everyday things. Lena kept making little comments like, "I'm so glad we can all act like adults now," and "It's nice to see Harper moving on." I just nodded, not giving her what she wanted, a reaction. When dessert came out, Asher grinned at the cake. "You sure it's safe to put that on the table?" he said. Lena laughed, hiding it behind her wine glass. Aunt Jo shot me a look, ready to step in, but I shook my head slightly. It wasn't time yet. I thanked everyone for coming and started a small slideshow on the TV. Pictures from work, my apartment, family moments. Everyone smiled, even Lena. She didn't notice the small USB drive beside the laptop. She didn't know what was coming next. I kept my tone light, steady. Before we eat, I just wanted to share something important with the family. Something that's been on my mind for a while. Lena leaned back, pretending to look bored. "Oh, this should be good," she muttered. I smiled at her, the same way she'd smiled at me that night with the cake. "Don't worry, Lena," I said softly. "It will be." And for the first time in years, I meant it. Everyone was laughing lightly when I dimmed the lights. The slideshow kept rolling. Pictures from my graduation, my new job, old holidays. Mom smiled, eyes soft with pride. Lena leaned back, twirling her wine glass, pretending to be entertained. It was the perfect moment. Then I clicked to the next slide. The photo disappeared, replaced by a scan of a document. At first, no one seemed to understand what they were looking at. Mom leaned forward. Aunt Jo's face tightened. Lena frowned slightly, still smiling like she thought it was some kind of joke. "This," I said calmly, "is the savings bond Grandma left for me. The one that was supposed to help with my college costs." Lena blinked. "Why are we looking at that?" she asked, voice too casual. I didn't answer. I clicked again, showing the second image, a close-up of the back, where the signature sat clear and fake. "Because that isn't my handwriting," I said quietly. "And Mom never signed it either." The air in the room changed. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was still sharp. I could hear the soft hum of the fridge in the next room. Mom looked at the paper again, then at Lena. "Is this some kind of mistake?" she whispered. Lena's face stiffened. "Oh, come on, Harper. You can't be serious. You think I'd..." I cut her off by clicking again. This time, a list of messages appeared on the screen, screenshots, dates, short exchanges. Her words. Her lies. "You told people I used you for money," I said quietly. "That I was ungrateful. You said I only got into school because of sympathy." "Harper, stop," she said sharply. "This is childish." Aunt Jo spoke up for the first time, her tone steady. "Maybe we should let her finish." Lena turned toward her. "Oh, please, Jo, don't encourage this nonsense." I didn't respond. I just played the last file, a short audio clip. Her voice filled the room, clear and smug. I told Asher to give her a taste of humility. She needed it. The silence that followed was heavy. Mom's hands trembled. Caleb, who'd been quiet all night, put his fork down slowly and looked at me, then at her. Asher's face went pale. He sank into his chair and covered his ears. Lena stood up fast. "You recorded me?" she shouted. "You manipulated this." "You." I looked straight at her. "I didn't manipulate anything. You said it. You planned it. You made your son humiliate me and laughed about it." Mom began crying softly, shaking her head. "Lena, please tell me this isn't true." Lena stuttered, looking around for support, but nobody met her eyes. The calm mask she always wore was cracking. Her hands trembled as she tried to explain. "She's twisting it. You all know how sensitive Harper is." I leaned back in my chair, my voice quiet but clear. That's what you call family, Lena? No one moved. No one spoke. The sound of the rain tapping against the window filled the silence. And for once, Lena had nothing left to say. For a moment, it felt like the whole world had gone quiet. Then Lena broke the silence with a sharp, angry laugh. You think this proves anything? She snapped, her voice rising. You've always been obsessed with making me look bad. You can't stand that I'm stronger than you. Her words came fast, almost tripping over each other. She pointed at me, face red, hands shaking. You're pathetic, Harper. You've been jealous since we were kids. You play the victim so people feel sorry for you. No one said a word. Mom just sat frozen, eyes wide, tears still on her cheeks. Aunt Jo stayed still beside me, her jaw tight. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Every sentence Lena threw at me only made her look smaller, more desperate. Caleb tried to calm her down. Lena, stop, he said softly. You're only making it worse. She turned on him. Oh, shut up, Caleb. You think you know her? She manipulates everyone. She's fake. She's always been fake. The room felt tense, heavy, like the air itself was watching her unravel. Then, in the middle of her shouting, Asher's small voice broke through. Mom, he said, eyes filling with tears. You told me to. It was quiet after that. Lena froze, her mouth half open. Everyone turned to him. The poor kid's face was red, his hands clutching his chair. You told me to do it at her party, he whispered again, crying now. You said it would be funny. Lena reached for him. Sweetheart, no, don't say that. You don't remember right. But her voice cracked, losing that confident tone she always used. Mom covered her mouth, whispering, Oh, Lena. Caleb looked away. The truth had finally left her control. Asher ran to me, burying his face in my sleeve. I'm sorry, he cried. I didn't want to, but she said. I hugged him gently, my voice calm. It's okay, Asher. You didn't know. Lena lunged toward him, but Aunt Jo stepped between us. That's enough, she said firmly. Let him be. Lena's breathing grew rough, her voice trembling with anger. You're all turning against me? After everything I've done for this family? You're believing her over me? No one answered. One by one, people began standing up. Rachel whispered something to her husband, then quietly walked out. Caleb followed, nodding at me once before leaving the room. Even Mom stood slowly, wiping her tears, and said in a tired voice, I can't listen to this anymore. She walked toward the door without looking back. Lena's rage shifted into panic. You can't just walk away from me, she shouted after her. Her voice cracked halfway through. Soon it was just me, Aunt Jo, and her. The room looked like a storm had passed through. Chairs pulled back, half-eaten food, the slideshow frozen on the TV. Lena sank into a chair, trembling. For the first time, she looked small, not powerful, not confident, just lost. She whispered, almost to herself, You've ruined me. I looked at her, my voice calm but firm. No, Lena. You did that all on your own. Aunt Jo rested a hand on my shoulder as I turned toward the kitchen. Behind me, I could still hear Lena sobbing softly, her anger finally breaking into pieces. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel afraid of her anymore. The house was quiet again, the kind of quiet that comes after chaos. Plates sat half full on the table, the smell of roasted chicken and spilled wine mixed in the air. I could still hear the faint hum of the fridge and the steady tap of rain against the windows. Everyone had gone home, leaving behind only the sound of the storm and the mess that came with the truth. I stood in the middle of the dining room, looking at the scene, overturned chairs, napkins on the floor, bits of frosting smeared across the tablecloth. My heart wasn't racing anymore. There was no anger left, just a stillness that felt new. The same room that had felt so tense an hour ago now felt light, almost peaceful. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a sponge. Cleaning felt like the only thing that made sense. I picked up the plates, wiped the counters, and swept the crumbs off the floor. When I bent down to clean a patch of frosting near the table leg, I paused. The smell of sugar hit me, and a strange memory surfaced. My mom kneeling on the floor months ago, cleaning up the cake after Asher threw it down. I had stood frozen then, too ashamed to move. Now I was the one wiping the floor, but everything felt different. Back then, I'd felt powerless. Now, I felt steady. I wasn't cleaning because I had to. I was doing it because I wanted to end the night my way. Quietly. Calmly. From the living room, I could hear Aunt Jo talking softly on the phone, probably telling Mom I was okay. I didn't listen to her words, but her tone was gentle, proud even. When she hung up, she came to the doorway and leaned against the frame, watching me. You don't have to do that tonight, she said softly. I know, I replied, straightening up. But I want to. She nodded, a small smile on her face. You handled yourself well, Harper. I shrugged. It wasn't about winning. I just wanted it to stop. And it has, she said. For good this time. After she left, I finished cleaning in silence. The lights reflected off the polished table, and for a moment, I just stood there, breathing in the calm. The same tiles that had once been covered in cake crumbs and humiliation now looked spotless. The irony wasn't lost on me. Same floor, same frosting, same kind of night, but everything had changed. Lena's voice had always filled every space we shared. Tonight, it was gone. Her silence wasn't power anymore. It was emptiness. I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't feel proud either. Just free. I turned off the lights, leaving only the faint glow from the kitchen window. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air smelled clean new. I looked around one last time, then grabbed my coat and stepped outside. The cold air hit my face, and I closed the door behind me. It was strange. No shouting, no victory speech, no audience. Just the soft sound of my shoes on wet pavement. But that quiet, that stillness, it was the kind of peace I'd been waiting for all along. A few weeks passed before things started to feel normal again. I moved into a small apartment across town, a quiet place with light walls and big windows. The first night there, I sat on the floor surrounded by boxes, listening to the hum of traffic outside. For the first time in a long while, my chest didn't feel tight. The silence was calm, not heavy. Mom came by often, bringing food and small things to help me settle in. She didn't talk much about that night, and neither did I. She seemed older now, gentler, like the truth had taken some weight off her too. Sometimes she'd just sit with me, sipping tea, both of us letting the quiet fill the space. Lena didn't call. I didn't expect her to. Word spread slowly through the family, and from what I heard, she kept to herself. I wasn't angry about it. Some distance was exactly what we both needed. Aunt Jo told me Asher had started therapy. He was struggling but learning. One afternoon, I found a letter in my mailbox, shaky handwriting, a few misspelled words. It was from him. He said he was sorry for what he'd done and that he hadn't understood how wrong it was. He wrote that Aunt Jo helped him talk about things he couldn't say before. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. I didn't need to reply right away. The apology was enough for now. Life became simple again. Work kept me busy, and the days started blending together in a quiet, steady rhythm. On a Sunday morning, I decided to bake for the first time since graduation. The kitchen smelled like vanilla and sugar. I didn't think about that ruined cake, just the one in front of me, soft, warm, and mine. When it was done, I placed it on the counter, cut one clean slice, and set it on a plate. I sat at the table, looking out the window as sunlight fell across the floor. No noise, no drama, just stillness. I took a bite, the sweetness light on my tongue. There was no bitterness left, no trace of anger. Just peace, quiet and steady, like something new had finally begun. Do you think I did the right thing by walking away from my sister and starting fresh, or should I have tried to fix things? Tell me your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.